Bonjour à tous, on va commencer un tout petit peu en français, mais on va ensuite continuer en anglais. On va avoir un sujet qui sera probablement le seul sujet qui sera présenté en langue anglaise sur ce salon. J'espère que ça sera une première et que ça continuera à l'avenir. Et on va parler de sujets de ville durable, donc dans le prolongement de ce qui avait été fait hier quand on a parlé de Vivapolis. Voilà. So the question, dear gentlemen who are present at this table, we have a key question talking about urban cities. Are we all European countries speaking of the same subject when we discuss about sustainable cities, smart cities? Are we really talking of the same subject? This will be the key question of today. From left to right, I will present various speakers that we will have today. Lars JENSEN, who is from Denmark, Mr. Marc SANDERSON, sorry, who is from Spain, although he's a US national, if I'm not mistaken. Stellan Frixell, who is from Sweden. Xavier Normand, we need to have a Frenchman in the team who is from France. And Tobias Kiep, who is from Germany. So, as a matter of very quick introduction, I wanted to mention that today the urban growth is very different from the point of view that we are taking in terms of countries, and in particular in Europe. The vision that I have, although I'm not a real specialist, is that it's different in Europe. Our vision is different in Europe than in the rest of the world, and particularly in developing countries. I have pointed a few elements, but I would like you to comment afterwards whenever you will have to speak. First of all, the growth of population in our countries is rather different than in the developer countries. It's much lower. Second point is that we have had an early concern for sustainability in most of our countries in Europe. It is rather welcomed by the citizens, which is not always the case throughout the world. We have also very few people are mentioning that we have a long-lasting history of sustainability. Our cities, our European cities are sometimes very old, are still sustainable. However, we have had problems. We have made failures. We have made failures in France. I suspect that you have made failures in Denmark, in Sweden, with bad projects and bad sustainable or non-sustainable projects. And I would like to comment on that. And mostly, I believe that we have a very large diversity in the approach of each and every country that are around this table. So I will start with you, Lars JENSEN. I will let you introduce you with your right title. And my question will be for you that you have been very much involved in a large project close to Copenhagen, which is a North Harbour project. And I would like to know from you, when you started this project, was it only a bullet point project somewhere, or was it integrated in something much larger? Lars.
Thank you. First, a short introduction of myself. I'm an architect, urban planner. I work for a company called Port and City Development, which is a Copenhagen privately owned company that is developing the North Harbour project in Copenhagen. I would start to say that in Denmark we have high ambitions on sustainability. We have many ambitious goals. Copenhagen, as a city, has also quite high ambitions in terms of sustainability. The aim is to be the first sustainable CO2 neutral capital in the world by 2025. And the North Harbour, being the largest urban development project in Copenhagen, of course, is a driver in this drive to be CO2 neutral. But having said that, I think it's important to note that the sustainability vision that we are working with is not only focused on CO2 neutrality or environmental issues. It's a broader vision, also focusing on social, cultural, and economical issues. In the end, I don't know if we have any images on the screen. In the end, what we are doing, basically, to say it short, is a new urban area with 40,000 inhabitants and 40,000 workplaces, and about 3.5 million square meters of building area. So it's quite a large development, and it will be developed over the next 40 years. Here you have the image. You might see the North Harbour in the upper part of the image, having approximately the same size as the historical center of Copenhagen. So it's quite a large development for Copenhagen. So the vision is to create a sustainable city. And as I said before, I don't know if we have the next slide. It consists of basically six themes, and one of the most important one, I think, is the cultural heritage. I think we should also discuss that maybe today. We're not doing a tabula rasa. We're not removing all parts of the harbour and just building a new city. We're trying to work with an integrated solution where we also use existing urban fabric, existing infrastructures, and transforming these into new solutions. We're working a lot with diversity in many terms, in terms of different housing types, in terms of mixing housing and business and shopping functions. And we're working, maybe what we are working the most with is urban, creating, let's say, quality for the public realm. Urban spaces, cultural functions, access to the water, and all these kind of things that makes it, let's say, that gives this area a quality for the people living and working there. That is maybe the most important.
Okay, thank you very much. In fact, I heard from you, I heard from Xavier some information on your project, and the example he gave me was the example of some bridges which have been built, on which mostly only bicycles are moving, and everything else is jammed. And you were so happy about it. So Xavier, if I give you the floor, I'll come back to you afterwards with the question of the people inside, how they reacted to this project. So Xavier, can you tell us what has been the evolution in Grenoble, the city for which we had a film yesterday, which was shown on the screen? What has been the evolution from the eco-quartier to eco-city? So why this move?
Okay, so I'm Xavier Normand. I'm an engineer, and I'm the project manager for all sustainable city projects in Grenoble. So Grenoble, I have no pictures, but you can see the film on the Viva Police booth and also in the documents. And so we are a medium-sized city in the Alps in France. And we were interested in the early 2000s. We have been interested in the concept of eco-districts. There were a few examples in Europe, but there have been some trips there to discover how other people did those kind of planning, and we did the same. And we did a first eco-district in the center of Grenoble, which is on old military barracks in the town center. And a new district has been designed after high environmental quality principles as an eco-district, with buildings with high thermal performance, positive energy buildings for offices, bioclimatic design for a wooden shopping mall, which has no air conditioning system. This is quite an innovation. Renewable energies, smart use of energy, cogeneration, stormwater management system based on 100% infiltration systems. So a lot of things like that. It's an urban district. It's linked with all the city, and we have 40% of social housing in this district. And this was the matrix. This district won the first French Grand Prix for eco-districts in 2009 from the government, and now it's visited by thousands of people each year. And it's as an example of sustainable urban planning, as BZ in the UK or BO01 in Sweden. And for us, it's a very interesting experience. We have on a monitoring program about how this district is living from a technical and social point of view, how people like it or not, and what has to be corrected. And now all new urban planning projects in Grenoble are eco-districts. But the step further is what we call the eco-city. The idea is to scale up, to try to work on a real piece of town, and in order to be able to integrate much more the different dimensions, so building performance, energy management, mobility strategies, and that's what we are now doing on the presqu'île, scientific presqu'île in Grenoble. So it's 250 hectares, so it's a big place, and it will be a real positive energy district, for instance, at the end of the project.
Okay, thank you very much, Xavier. You mentioned one word, which is mobility. We have a mobility man here, Mr. Tobias Kipp, who is a mobility manager. You will give us exactly your full title. I would like to hear from you, Tobias, how you did, how the mobility component is a key and structuring element in the development of the city.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's really important. I think your project.
Your title first.
Okay. Tobias Kipp. I am the head of urban mobility management for Team Red. We are a private consultant company based in Berlin. We do sustainable mobility concepts for municipalities, regions, private companies, also industrial districts, and we are also involved in the development of mobility services. For example, you might heard about Car2Go, Quicker from Volkswagen, and so on. I think it's really exciting because you plan a vision for your city districts you are working at the moment, and I really hope that you have mobility in mind from the very beginning. I'm quite sure you do. If you look at traffic planning in a traditional way, it's often done like, well, we have a demand today, and our experience is it will rise about 20% until 2025, 2030, and then we plan our infrastructure to match this demand. And I think this is almost dangerous because one reason is I'm not sure it will be that way. We have declining population in many regions, we have new mobility behavior, we have rising mobility costs. All these things will have an impact. But the big thing is, well, this is not a natural law, there's something we can do about it. So we need a vision how mobility and with it the city structure should look like in the future and trying to get there. I brought one slide from Seoul, which is quite a
should have one or two.
Radical approach, which was built in the 60s, 70s, quite as a, well, city development dream of this age, and it becomes a city development nightmare during the millennium, and so they really radically changed city. We were not involved in this project, but I think it's quite a good example what you can reach if you start to think in a new way.
Okay, thank you very much. We will come back to mobility because this gave me some ideas, and we can explain when we raise the second launch of question. Marc Sanderson. When we prepared this debate, there were two things that you mentioned which strike me very much. One is the way in which a smart city driving can improve sustain the economic growth. So the word economy linked to city is not always so obvious. And second point, saving citizen time. This one I was surprised. So how come a sustainable city, of course the mobility will be a good element on this, can save time for the people? And how can this be a driving element?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Patrick. I'm happy to be here representing the city of Malaga and representing Spain. As mentioned, I'm originally from the United States, but have been in Spain for 8 years and working for the city of Malaga for 4 years. My title, I'm the Director of International Economic Development for the city, which is closely tied to smart cities and all the projects that the mayor of Malaga has going on. As most of you know, Malaga is a port city on the Mediterranean coast, home to Pablo Picasso and Antonio Banderas, among others. We do know a lot about sustainability. As you mentioned, Malaga is a city of 3,000 years of history, and so have seen various civilizations and people come through and has managed to sustain itself over those years. More recently, it's been known as a tourist destination. Obviously, the Costa del Sol for sun, for golf, and for relaxing. There's a beautiful picture of the city and the port there. But about 25 years ago, the city and the region of Andalusia made a concerted effort to focus on technology and built a technology park in Malaga and has managed to grow that to over 600 high-tech companies today. So we've seen a lot of success. There's an image of some of the companies. You can't really make out all the logos, but it's been great. We have both multinationals from around the world, but also local support for entrepreneurs, and have really created a viable ecosystem. Because of all the technology, we started seeing lots of instruments and measurements being used within the city. So measuring pollution, water, energy. This began about 10 years ago, and one of the things the mayor wanted to do was to bring all that information together and to utilize it, which is, I guess, the goal of a smart city, to be able to take the information, whether it's the bus information, mobility, the taxis, etc., to try to make that more efficient for the citizens. And what we saw was that multinationals started coming to Malaga because of its size to use it as a test bed, an urban lab. So the images here you see are a project that we're actually working with the Japanese government, with NATO, which is present here today, and what it is it's 200 electric vehicles in this city, and this project is going on for 3 years, and the idea is to study mobility, electric use, and hopefully make it scalable to not only cities in Europe but around the world and in Japan, obviously. We have other projects with the University of Massachusetts, MIT in Boston, of course with Endesa, the technology energy company in Spain, where they took a zone, a neighborhood, an eco district, if you will, and really utilized 14,000 users to see how they used electricity, looking at microgeneration, smart grid distribution, and ultimately usage in the homes. And this project, again, is scalable, and Endesa uses that throughout Spain and throughout Italy and other places. So all of these projects have helped us receive recognition and awards, not only within Spain but around the world. We have companies like IBM, the Japanese government, South Korea as well, that are coming to study what we're doing. Ultimately, the mayor is committed to these projects and is willing to take on any pilot project or a company that's interested in testing things in the city. And his goal ultimately is, as you mentioned earlier, is to try to make lives better for the citizens. And the ways you can do that is obviously by saving money and ultimately saving time. I think in the end, people want to get back and forth to work and to take their kids to school, but they love to have more time for themselves. So if we can make the transportation systems, bus systems more efficient, that's good for the citizens. If their interaction with the city can be reduced to one point of entry, one website where they can do all of their dealings with the city, that's what we want as well. So those are the types of projects and the way the mayor defines a smart city for us. And so I think based on his commitment for international development, we want these solutions. We want companies to come and try things in our city, but then we want to give those back to the rest of Europe and see if we can help expand those around.
Okay, thank you very much. Last but not least, Telan, it's very complicated to send the question to you because there are diversified questions. First of all, the word has not been mentioned so far, but we will keep it for the last part of our debate. The holistic or systemic approach is something which will be the key focus on which we will concentrate in the second part of our session. Stellan, I wanted to ask you two things. First of all, do we really need rethink the city. I do that on purpose because I know that you will mention about this book, Rethink the City. Why do we need to rethink the city? First question. And how do you manage to rethink the city, particularly with the engineering sector? And second question is a project on which you have been working for very long. And I've seen that you were discussing this project a few minutes ago, this Ammerby, you pronounce Ammerby project. So can you speak on this project and also continue with your approach on rethinking the city?
Thank you, Patrick. I would like to say first that I'm an architect working for Tengbom architecture firm in Stockholm. And I've been working as a planning architect for the city of Stockholm as well. And the city of Stockholm was the green capital of EU 2010, and Copenhagen will be that next year, I think. I'm also representing FEDIC, the International Federation of Consulting Engineers, and there is also a European organization, EFCA, and a Swedish organization, also organizing engineers but also architects. So that is my role. When we are working with projects and cities, it's easy to forget the city functions and the city systems. We look very much into traffic, what vehicles we are using, what buildings we are constructing and deciding, etc. But we also have to look into the city as a system in a holistic way and see that there are big differences in cities. And that's what we are describing in those reports we have here, the Rethink City report, the project sustainability management, and the project sustainability logbook.
Incidentally, I can say that all this will be available on the stand Viva Police after this session for those who want to continue discussing with Stellan.
Yes, that's J65 to be precise. So we are trying to describe how we are dealing with cities and why we should deal with cities, but also with buildings, and what methods we are going to use into this. If we wandering around here, we see a lot of fantastic products, but we have to coordinate them and look into them in a systematic way. The Hammarby project is a very good example of this, and I'm sure Grenoble and Copenhagen will be as well, that we actually are working besides the urban structure with the infrastructure coordination and environmental performance, that we actually are regulating how much energy is allowed to use in buildings, what kind of heat or cooling is going to be used, how we deal with the garbage sorting, how to recycle it or to go from waste to management, and also to support and encourage public transportation, which in Stockholm is running on biogas or green electricity or ethanol mostly. And we're also looking into smart technique, ICT, information communication technology, and a lot of course, the living environment, the family-friendly approach. We are dealing and we are supplying for our inhabitants. We also got a lot of international visitors coming to Stockholm every day. And into Hammarby to look at how we have been working with this. Very much from China, but from all over Europe. This is the Hammarby product area, and this shows the toolbox approach to this, where we are dealing with the district heating, public transportation, cleaning of polluted soil, transport, etc.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we enter into the debate, I would like really to concentrate now on the debate about is it really possible to have an holistic approach? I'm somewhat always puzzled when I listen to you, because you take it by some angle. You take it very much on the mobility. The mobility approach seems to be one of the driving element. But maybe before we enter into this last part into the debate, I wanted to hear from you, Lars. What has been the acceptability of the people on your project? Because you see, this was something very important. And how do you measure it? How do you know that the people are satisfied? You go in the street, and how do you manage?
That's a tricky question. I would say we are fortunate enough, so in the sense that we have no people, we have not much people in the area at the moment, so we're not disturbing a lot of people. That's a important thing. But there are people there, and we're actually speaking to them on a practical level, how we're going to deal with their needs during this development. On a more higher level, on the city, of course, this project is a big part of let's say, the vision for the development of Copenhagen, and so it has been presented and debated on a city level for many years now. And I think basically people, there's a critical tendency towards this project because people are very they expect a lot from this project. But now that we're doing construction of the first phase, we're finally there to prove that we're actually fulfilling these ambitions. So I'm at the moment, up until now, it has been just a discussion whether are you going to make it, and now I hope in the next few years we will be able to prove that it's going to be of high quality.
And anyone would like to comment on this in Grenoble or in Stockholm? What are the reaction of the people? I should know it because I am from the place, but
no, just one thing is that I think that this holistic approach is really a demand from the citizens. I mean, when you speak with citizens, if you say we have one way of thinking about mobility, but housing is another reasonment, and so, they say, where is the consistency? Which is the vision of the mayor and the team conducting the city? So this is a real demand to have a holistic approach, all dimensions, and also to have a long-term view about the vision about what the city should become. I would say we are quite okay about this vision in town centers, and that's okay. But the problem now is the big cities, in the suburbs, in the Grand Paris or places at this scale, the problem is much tougher.
Any reactions, Stellan?
Well, I think people in the Hammarby area in Stockholm think it's very natural to live in a nice neighborhood with good performance, but they don't regard it as an eco-city as we do as professional, because we have a lot of the same performance all over the more central parts of Stockholm anyhow. Also the existing building structure from the late 1900s, 1800s. And I think this is a key point here, that we actually have to implement system that is working in the existing European cities. We can't only construct very nice new eco-cities. We have to deal with everything. And then the new areas can be a sort of test bed for the existing cities. So the task is much bigger than eco-cities.
Tobias, you wanted to say something about this?
I think this is really an important aspect, because you don't start from scratch. You have to work with the people who are already there, and this is extremely critical in the area of mobility, because mobility is always connected to behavioral change if you want to do something. This may be quite a bit different if you talk about alternative energy sources. You still plug in your CD player like the way you do independently if you get power from solar panels or if you have coal. But if you want to change the mobility system, this is really something that requires the behavioral change. So what we do when we prepare our mobility concept is that we start to look where the people are at the beginning by doing surveys for companies and their employees or for the citizens who live in a certain district, or we do workshops with them, sessions with citizens to get their opinion and to get them on board. And this makes it, well, not easy, but easier to get a plan that really can be implemented with the support of the citizens.
Okay, Marc?
No, to the point about the holistic approach, I mean, I think it absolutely has to be holistic, and certainly from Malaga, that's what we're looking at. You know, we used to have command centers for emergency situations where you had police and fire and hospitals, and you had other traffic command centers and the likes. What we're doing right now is actually bringing all that together into one macro command center so that you can have all the information. And we certainly have, as I mentioned earlier, more sensors in the city so we can measure things more precisely. But all that information has to come together into one place so that the people can make, the city managers and the mayors can make better decisions. And so we're creating a control center right now in Malaga that brings all of those together to look at the solution, because in the end, everything is connected. I mean, the buses are connected with the electricity, with the water, with the parking meters downtown, air pollution, all that affects air pollution, et cetera. So all these things have to be connected. That's the only way to look at it. And in regards to the citizens and their approach, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's the purpose of the pilot projects that we have. The main focus is to get feedback from the citizens and how are they using it, what do they think about it, and that's you know, the Endesa project had 14,000 citizens that gave us feedback on the usage of their energy and how they wanted to see it. And the electric vehicle project with NATO and Mitsubishi Motors is exactly that. We're measuring how they're using it each day, how far they drive, and all that stuff. You have to know, are the citizens getting benefits from that, and do they really want the solutions that you're providing for them?
But you do it by statistics, by poll, or how do you measure it, physically speaking?
Well, each project has its own measurement tools. So, for example, the electric vehicle, each electric vehicle, the 200 vehicles that we have, has an onboard computer that sends information to this command center. So, from that, the driver can input information, additional information if you would like to. And in regards to the Endesa electricity project, it was through surveys and polling, but also through the systems that we have. I mean, everything is connected through sensors and technology, so you can see how much energy an individual house is using at that time. But at the end, you want to ask the citizens if they're happy, so we supplement that by surveys. And another thing from a holistic approach that we've done is we have a bus that we've taken and stripped it out and put technology inside of it, meaning, you know, iPhones or smartphones and tablets and things like that, and going to the neighborhoods that are less connected, let's say, or don't have internet and things like that, and don't know these things we're talking about, a smart city. And it's a mobile solution that we can take, and that is outreach for the citizens, because again, a lot of this technology is not widespread to all the citizens. I mean, we take it for granted that everyone knows how to use a smartphone or a tablet and the likes, but it may not be that simple, or even the internet for that matter. I mean, the people 60 or 70 years old sometimes don't even know how to log on to check information from their city. So you have to educate them on that as well.
Okay, thank you, Marc. Holistic approach, it needs, if I understand well, it needs to be planned from the very beginning. What is the role of engineering firms or planners or architects? Because we have nearly everything, everybody around the table is either architect, engineer, planner. So what is the role of the engineering? Isn't it the key element for you, Stellan? I am an engineer, so I will not say the contrary.
I have to answer yes. Very much so. I think there is a potential in the holistic view and the city systems that we are actually not using. We are far from using today, and I think we should plan more and invest more, but we should plan better and invest better than we do today. We invest 3-4 times more in road transport in Europe than we do in rail transport, which is totally in the wrong direction. infrastructure investments in some European countries like Sweden are going down compared with the GNP. I think it should go up so we could maintain the systems we have at the metro system in Paris, London, or extend it in Stockholm, etc. I think we have to look into this more and, as we say, rethink cities because we have a potential there.
Okay, thank you. Going to the second part, so the holistic for me is clear. It has to be holistic, one way or another. Even if we start by one piece of the puzzle, we have to go to a holistic approach. We understand it's not that simple, but we have to go into it. My second question was with respect to our European experiences. First of all, do you exchange between you? I know that it should be the case, but I would like to hear it from you. Do you have examples that you share? You go to visit Stockholm, you go to visit Grenoble, and so on. What kind of experience do you get out of this? And key question behind that, would this be useful to go outside of Europe? I would say more or less together, maybe in a coordinated commercial holistic approach, maybe something like that. Would it have a sense? Because so far I am under the impression that we go not in really in good order. Projects are coming. We have created our Viva Police, Symbio is existing, and so on. So is there a way to merge somewhere? So who could start on this? You want to start, Lars?
I'll start by saying, of course, it's important that we look at other projects. We do that. We do that every day. In our case, we do it on different levels. We work abroad with projects. For instance, here in France, we have been working with Caen in Normandy. We also, I know Stellan is working in China. So in a professional way, of course, we don't stay home. We also work abroad. On a more, let's say, in relation to getting inspiration, we in our project look very much at the Nordic countries, and we do that for a specific reason. And it is, of course, because they have the same context and some of the same challenges that we do, but also a lot of similarities in the way that they say the society is structured. So we can learn, let's say, a lot from abroad. We can learn maybe even more from our neighbors in terms of how they deal with public interests and so forth. And if I might add something, in order to work with urban development, I think in general you have to understand the context. I think this is a key issue, whether it's being a harbor in the water, which is in some ways disconnected to the city in our case, or being a urban district integrated very much physically in the city. You still have to understand the context. So we should be careful not to think that we can develop one solution in Copenhagen that we can just copy and put it in China. We have to understand the specific context of each project in order to let's say, be precise about the measures that we should use.
That would mean that if supposing in our dreams that we will all go in China or in India and say, okay, look what we have done in our countries. We have an approach which are slightly diverging from one city to another, but all together we can propose some integrated program to you with various examples, and you pick whatever you find is most suitable to your country. If you go to China, where they have said that 100 cities would have to be built very, very soon, I believe 100 cities, they will not look like Grenoble or like Stockholm. So. You
can say that just to take an example, in Copenhagen we have a long tradition of bicyclists. So we use bicyclism as a tool to create sustainable transport. It's 33% of all travels in the city that will happen by bike. That's the vision. But we cannot take this system and just use it in Los Angeles, for instance. That will take time because they don't have this tradition. So we have to take a clear look at the circumstances at a specific place and then start from there.
Okay. Who would like to comment? Stellan?
Yes, of course, we have to learn from each other very much, and China is very interesting here because they are using almost 50% of all cement that we are using in the world. And in Europe we have a tendency to look into the United States or North America when we are making our lifestyle. European cities has been growing area-wise with 78% since the mid-50s, but the population has only grown with 33% in those 50, 60 years. So we have a urban sprawl here, and in China they are used with density, they have no problem with that. They are investing 16% of the GNP in infrastructure, and in Western and Northern Europe we are investing like 2%. So we can learn from Southeast Asia, South Korea, etc. Yes.
Okay. And some of you, Marc?
Yeah, as far as the sharing, I mean, the city of Malaga participates in certainly a network of smart cities within Spain, but there's also movements from the European Union to create a commission to look at smart cities. We're members of the Urban Lab, European Urban Lab, Network of Living Labs, and this connects the cities around Europe and actually around the world. There's also programs, Green Emotion, for example, which looks at trying to standardize all of the mobility and electric vehicles projects within Europe, because you don't want something that is developed in Spain or in Malaga, an electric vehicle, and then when you drive to France or to Paris, you can't plug in your car or whatever. So that those standards need to be looked at, and we're sharing those ideas and information as well. So we're absolutely looking at those things. I think it's also true what my fellow members of the table here said, is that when you look at other cities, you have to customize some of the solutions, because the challenges are not always the same. And so when you're looking at new cities, whether it's the Middle East or other developing countries, or even in China, when you're creating, some cities are old but others are new. If they're a new city, it's a blank canvas, and it's a lot easier than, say, the cities within Europe that have literally thousands and thousands of years of history, and moving and building and making changes is a lot more difficult. So the solutions have to be customized culturally, whether it's the bicycle situation or structurally from building on top of a new city. So,
Tobias?
I think we really have excellent examples how things can be done in Europe, and we should learn from each other. For example, Copenhagen is more or less a cycling capital of the world, I think, and it's not because they have such great cycling weather all year long. They do the right decisions at some time, and so they really can make a change or be a good example. If it comes to integrated approaches, it gets a bit more difficult, because we don't have many projects that really have a holistic approach, and every city has its own unique history, and you have to think about how things can be implemented there and how things have to be adapted. But I think there's really a huge potential to learn from each other.
Xavier?
Yes, just the same as Copenhagen, and we are in a lot of European projects and networking projects, so that's very interesting. The European Commission played a important role in that respect. For us, the Concerto project, we were in a consortium with Växjö in Sweden and Delft in the Netherlands, and it was a very good experience to exchange good practices and so on, and to draw them on documents and have.
To do what? What was the purpose of this Concerto?
Concerto was about smart use of energy and high energy performance in cities, for new buildings and for refurbished buildings. And refurbishment is a very, very important topic in Europe. And as we have different generations of towns, and there are a lot of towns in cities in Eastern Europe with very, very low quality buildings, and so this is an initiative from the European Commission to share those good practices between cities. I think the same is so first it was energy performance in buildings. Now it's much more this holistic approach of urban planning and the question of how to refurbish the town, transform the cities from what they are progressively to a more sustainable way. So I think in that respect we need tools from engineering companies. I mean, for instance, energy performance is easy. You have a figure, you see how many kilowatts per square meter, and for urban shaping, it's much more complicated, but it's possible with 3D simulations, with some aspects of augmented reality systems, and so and so, and that's what we are asking from engineering companies.
So, of course, being a member of Syntec Ingénierie in France, I can let you answer to that also, Stellan.
Yes, sustainability can be very complicated, but it can also be very simple. I don't know if it's true, but I heard that 40% of all windows in EU are single glazed. So if we should do one thing in EU is change those 40% into double or triple glaze. That's very simple.
Very happy about that, because I'm just reconstructing my house with double or triple. I'm not sure about double or triple so far. I will come back to you. Okay. One word has been mentioned, which for me was not really a surprise, is cultural heritage. I don't know who of you mentioned this point. Isn't it somewhere a specific angle that we have in Europe, that little by little in developing countries is considered? I do remember when I worked in China many years ago, cultural heritage was not very much a concern. It has totally changed now. It's really a focus point in these countries. Is it something that we can export, and how do you integrate it in your projects?
I think Marc said it quite clearly that most or many European cities have a long, 1,000-year-long history. So we have a big heritage, and of course it's an important part of our culture. It's both the way we live, but it's also buildings, parks, and so forth. Paris is a good example, and of course we should protect these things. We have also learned, I think, a lot from projects from the 70s and 60s that forgot a little bit about this. So we should also remember these kind of projects. So when we work in Copenhagen, basically our base is all the time we ask the question, how can we make it the next generation of Copenhagen? How not to make a new Copenhagen, but the next generation of Copenhagen. So we look very much into what qualities we find in Copenhagen, qualities in both urban spaces, but also the way that we live. So again, cyclism is a good example of a quality. People like to take their bike. It's very sustainable. How can we improve that? We can improve that by making more efficient bicycle paths. We can improve it by making a public free bike system. And all these initiatives that can take a culture and make it a little bit better. I think that is very important. In relation to the buildings, which is a difficult one because we have a lot of old buildings and they are not very sustainable. I should say, as an architect, we should really be careful not to make them too sustainable in order to basically put a lot of insulation on the outside, because this is a concern. So sometimes we have to accept that if we want to keep, let's say, a cultural heritage, we cannot achieve the perfect sustainable solution environmentally. So we have to have a balance there, I think.
Okay. I will make the conclusion the way I understand it, but we will have a few minutes to react, because maybe I will say something stupid somewhere, so please feel free to react. From what I heard and I learned from the discussion today, I think it's possible to have an holistic approach. It's, first of all, it's more than possible, it's a need. It has to be a focus point. It has to be as much as possible customized to the local needs and to the people. Customized, the wording of customized is very important. Focused on the people. very well engineered, and with respect to the local situation, like cultural heritage being a part of it. Who wants to say a conclusive word on this at the end of this session? And correct me if I forgot something, a key point, a key bullet point.
That was very clear. Just one thing is that in the question about the model of of cities around the world, we really think that European cities are a good size and good way of linking cities together. This deals with the size of the cities, the way of life, the mixity of functions inside the cities, the networking using high-speed trains and so on. But this is really a model that we can much more support to export in other countries, I think.
Somebody would like to comment on this? Stellan, give us.
Yes, talking about export to basically to Asia then, they are very much making an much more densified but still an American city. And I think we have qualities from the European city that we can bring into this context about urban life, how we are living in the streets world, networking, qualities, etc. I think we have very much to contribute from Europe here, and I think we are in a kind of hurry as well.
Marc, being a US citizen expatriated in Spain, you have to comment on this.
No, I agree. I mean, I think that the solutions have to be holistic. I'll give an example. We have a project in Malaga that has all the public parking spaces are connected, and so when citizens are arriving to the downtown area in their car, if they have a smartphone, they can look and see which parking garages are full or not full. And this is what I was talking about before. It saves the citizen time because they can go directly to the parking garage that still has spaces available. It helps with traffic congestion and ultimately cuts down the CO2 emissions for the city. And it helps everything move faster and better, and everyone's happy. And again, as I said earlier, I mean, I think that the goal of a smart city using technology is to create things more efficiently so that the citizens have more time. Ultimately, I think that's what everyone's looking for, is more time so that you can enjoy the cultural things that we all have and love, whether it's your buildings in Europe or your other cultural heritages in China or the United States for that matter. So I think that it's as engineers, as most of us are here at the table, we can't get lost too much in the technical details of it and have to keep in mind that ultimately what we're trying to do is make things better for the citizens.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Marc. Thank you, Lars. Thank you, Stellan. Thank you, Xavier. And thank you, Tobias. So this is the end of our session. Je vous remercie tous les 5 du temps que vous avez consacré. J'ai appris pas mal de petites choses. Et puis, one thing I wanted to say, but I will say it in French because most of the people are speaking French. If they want to have more information on this subject, we will all move to the Vivapolis stand J65, un petit peu plus loin là-bas. Donc vous pouvez nous retrouver, en particulier avoir les éléments qui sont disponibles de la Fédération internationale FIDIC avec Stellan Frixel. Merci à vous tous. Au revoir.